The story opens with a beautiful view of the city of Rome. That calm mood is shattered when a man named Enzo Ciccati is suddenly chased by the police. He has just stolen some chickens and a luxury watch that he plans to sell so he can keep himself going. While running from the police, Enzo tries to hide on a garbage barge that is usually used to clean the river. He hopes the officers will give up and leave, but instead they climb onto the boat and start searching it. With no other choice, Enzo jumps into the river to avoid being caught. The police lose track of him and eventually leave the area. When things seem quiet, Enzo tries to come back up, but slips and falls into a large drum filled with radioactive waste under the river. It takes him a long time and a lot of effort to finally crawl out of it. And that moment changes everything. This is They Call Me Jig Robot. Enzo manages to get back to his apartment, but soon he is hit with a terrible fever. He starts vomiting and coughing badly. Without realizing it, his body has been contaminated by a dangerous black substance. Surprisingly, by the next morning, his condition has improved in an almost miraculous way. Enzo then goes looking for Sergio, his neighbor who lives one floor below, hoping to sell him the stolen watch. Sergio is not at home, so Enzo decides to follow him to his workplace. Sergio turns out to be a member of a criminal gang led by a ruthless man named Fabio, someone who does not hesitate to kill his own men if they make mistakes. Among the gang, Sergio is known as the most loyal member. That morning, Fabio is holding a meeting, looking for someone brave enough to handle a drug deal being moved through another airport. When no one volunteers, Sergio finally steps up and agrees to do it himself. After the meeting, he meets Enzo and buys the stolen watch for €100. He quickly realizes that Enzo is a skilled thief, so he invites him to help with the drug pickup mission. With no real reason to refuse and needing the money, Enzo agrees. They stop by Sergio's place to grab some equipment first. There, Enzo meets Alessia again, who is very excited as she talks about a Japanese cartoon called Steel Jig. At first, Enzo finds her behavior strange, but over time he realizes that Alessia is struggling with mental health issues. On the way to the airport, Sergio explains that Alessia has been traumatized ever since her mother died. Because of that, she often mixes reality with her favorite anime world and sees the people around her as characters from the show. About half an hour later, Sergio takes Enzo to the airport area to carry out the drug transaction. Things take a bad turn when one of the men overdoses and begs to be taken to the hospital. Instead of helping, Sergio drags him to an abandoned building and continues with the deal on the top floor, the only level that still has running water. The overdosed man dies on the spot, which enrages his friend. Without thinking, the man pulls out a gun and shoots Sergio. Enzo, who has been watching everything, is also shot and falls from the upper floor. Miraculously, he only passes out for a short time. When he wakes up, he finds himself still alive and able to move. He then heads back to his apartment, clutching the gunshot wound in his shoulder. When Enzo gets home, he is briefly greeted by Alessia, who is still waiting for her father to return. He cannot bring himself to explain what really happened, so he slips straight into his room. He checks the gunshot wound on his shoulder and realizes something strange. There is no pain at all. Hoping to calm his nerves with a video, he is interrupted by Alessia making noise outside his door. Frustrated, he punches the metal door. To his shock, the entire door breaks apart. That is the moment Enzo realizes something in him has changed. Curious and a little terrified, he starts testing his limits. The fridge feels almost weightless. A metal bar bends like soft clay. And then a reckless idea comes to him. If he is this strong, he can easily break open an ATM. That night, wearing a hoodie and a mask, Enzo steals an entire ATM machine and carries it home with ease. The whole incident is caught on surveillance cameras and quickly goes viral, earning him the nickname of a super criminal. With the stolen cash, he treats himself to a good meal and stacks of new videos. The next morning, he wakes up to another surprise. The gunshot wound has completely disappeared. It is as if nothing ever happened. When he steps outside, he finds Alessia being cornered by Fabio's gang. They are furious that Sergio has not returned with the drug money. Fabio is under pressure too, since he owes a payment to Nuncia, the rival gang leader, while the shipment has not even arrived. When Alessia is asked about her father, she innocently says he was probably kidnapped by the Fire King, a villain from Steel Jig. Fabio feels mocked and threatens to kill her. Before anything can happen, Enzo bursts through a window wearing his hoodie and mask. He fights off Fabio's men without feeling any of their blows, even though they manage to land a few hits. The fight is brutal, and Fabio eventually slices off one of Enzo's toes before escaping. After the chaos, Enzo takes Alessia back to his apartment to keep her safe. She grows even more convinced that Enzo is Hiroshi Shiba, the hero from her beloved anime. Meanwhile, Enzo tries to tape his severed toe back on, hoping it will heal the same way his gunshot wound did. Alessia laughs when she sees the apartment filled with money-stained blue from the ATM security die. She tells Enzo he should use his strength for good instead of stealing. Her words hit him harder than he expects, reminding him that Sergio is truly gone. That night, unable to sleep, Enzo opens Sergio's box of belongings. Inside, he finds a suspicious map, most likely connected to Fabio's next move. The next day, Enzo decides to drop Alessia off at the special needs school where he himself was once left as a child. He hopes she will be safe there and will not get caught up in his problems. Alessia refuses at first, but she eventually agrees after Enzo promises to buy her a princess dress and come back for her later in the afternoon. Even then, she still pouts as he walks away. Meanwhile, Fabio and his men are scrambling to figure out who the masked man was that attacked them the day before, and they are still searching for Sergio, who has not returned. Their stress grows even worse when Nuncia's crew starts demanding payment for the drugs they delivered. Fabio refuses to borrow money because of his pride, leaving the gang stuck in a tightening corner. Things only get worse when Nuncia's men bring news that Sergio's body has been found. They still demand full payment, no excuses. While all of this is happening, Enzo continues his life of petty theft. But that night, while looking for one of his favorite videos, he randomly picks up an anime cassette. To his own surprise, he starts enjoying it. With pressure mounting, Fabio decides to carry out an old plan he once prepared with the late Sergio. He sets up an ambush to rob an armored cash van that he believes is carrying 200,000 euros. He and his men wait on the roadside with their weapons ready, but before they can make a move, someone else stops the van first and steals everything inside. That someone turns out to be Enzo. Enzo uses the stolen cash to splurge on new gear, including a giant home theater projector for his apartment. He also buys the complete set of Steel Jig DVDs because he has unknowingly become just as hooked on the anime as Alessia. Before he can even start watching them, the police show up at his door. Enzo panics, but it turns out they are only there to return Alessia, who had been wandering around. The officer reminds him to look after her, knowing how fragile her mental state is. Alessia is thrilled to be back. Despite her condition, she begins to develop real feelings for Enzo, believing he is her hero. Enzo finds himself caring for her too, and the two of them start watching the anime together. But the quiet moment triggers old wounds in Alessia. Beneath her cheerful obsession with Steel Jig, she carries deep trauma from her past, including the loss of her mother and the abuse she once endured. Enzo gently tries to comfort her, slowly beginning to understand just how much pain she has been holding inside. The next day, Enzo decides not to leave Alessia at the special needs school anymore. She is still convinced that her father is trapped in a fiery cave, just like in her favorite anime. Trying to comfort her, Enzo takes her to a play park that has an artificial cave. But instead of calming her down, the place brings back memories of her childhood with her father. Meanwhile, tension inside Fabio's gang keeps rising. Vincenzo, one of Sergio's former associates, grows impatient with Fabio's leadership. He insists they should borrow money to pay their debt to Nuncia. Instead of listening, Fabio snaps and kills him using his wild dog. Back with Enzo, he tries to lift Alessia's mood by taking her to the mall. The change of scenery works. Alessia, who used to panic easily, begins to relax and even laugh. She talks endlessly about Steel Jig, and for once Enzo does not mind at all. While passing a clothing store, Enzo keeps his promise and buys her the princess dress she has been dreaming about. The moment strengthens their bond. For Enzo, who has lived a lonely life, it feels like he finally has someone to care about. For Alessia, he becomes the protector she has been longing for. But their happiness does not last long. Alessia again begs Enzo to save her father. This time, Enzo loses his patience and accidentally blurts out the truth that Sergio is dead. Shocked and hurt, Alessia storms off and boards a tram alone. Realizing his mistake, Enzo chases after her. In desperation, he stops an entire tram with his bare hands just to apologize. The stunt is caught on camera, and rumors quickly spread that the masked ATM thief is the same mysterious man from the tram incident. At the same time, Fabio is running out of options. Desperate for money, he finally borrows from a transgender individual named Marcelone. Their meeting turns intimate for a moment, but before anything continues, Nuncia and her men show up and attack. Fabio is nearly burned alive, but it turns out Nuncia was only scaring him. The situation spirals out of control when Marcelone starts shooting, killing 3 of Nuncia's men. Enraged, Fabio kills Marcelone on the spot. During all this chaos, Enzo brings Alessia to the hospital to see Sergio's body. Instead of breaking down, she seems strangely calm. After everything she has been through, she has already accepted that her father's gone. Meanwhile, Fabio returns home in a panic. He has just killed members of a powerful gang, and the fear finally hits him. When he arrives at his hideout, he is shocked to find all of his men dead except for Tazina. With no one left to trust, he starts digging into the identity of the so-called supercriminal. Online, he finds the footage of the man who stopped a tram with his bare hands, and he realizes the man is Enzo. Knowing he is now being hunted, Enzo quickly grabs Alessia and flees the apartment. They try to disappear by staying at a small motel, hoping it will buy them some time. But just as they settle in, Enzo gets a call from Fabio, who already knows exactly where they are hiding. Before Enzo can react, he is shot with a tranquilizer and collapses. Tazina grabs Alessia and locks her inside a car. When Enzo wakes up, he is bound tightly with tape. Fabio interrogates him, demanding to know the secret behind his superhuman strength. Fabio wants that power for himself and reveals a plan to blow up a train station with a massive bomb. Enzo keeps quiet at first, but when he realizes Alessia's life is at risk, he is forced to cooperate. He leads Fabio to the river, the same place where he first fell into the radioactive waste. Enzo begs him to release Alessia, but Fabio refuses. At the same time, Alessia tries to fool Tazina by pretending she needs to use the bathroom, hoping for a chance to loosen her restraints. Just when things reach a breaking point, Nunzia's gang suddenly appears and opens fire on Fabio. In the chaos, Alessia runs toward Enzo, but she is struck by a bullet. Enzo is devastated. He has no idea what kind of war is happening between Fabio and Nunzia, but none of it matters now because Alessia has become the victim. Holding her in his arms, he apologizes and begs her to stay alive. With her final breath, Alessia asks Enzo to use his strength to help people, not harm them. Moments later, she dies, leaving Enzo completely alone once again. But Fabio is not dead. He survives the river because he also drank the radioactive waste, giving him the same strength as Enzo. Now filled with rage, he prepares for revenge. He storms Nunzia's headquarters, changes his appearance, and slaughters the entire gang in a brutal massacre, recording every moment.
Azione.
In his mind, if no one cares about his story, then he will force the world to notice him in the most violent way possible. On the other side of the city, Enzo is still drowning in grief. Losing Alessia has left him completely directionless. But everything shifts in an instant. He comes across a car accident where two police officers manage to pull a woman to safety. But a young child is still trapped inside the vehicle. Without hesitation, Enzo steps in and uses his strength to rescue the child. The mother is overwhelmed with gratitude. And in that moment, Enzo finally feels something he has not felt in a long time. Helping someone actually makes him feel alive. It reminds him of Alessia's final words, asking him to use his strength for good. Right then, a news report flashes on a nearby screen. Fabio has gone viral after slaughtering Nunzia's gang by himself. Now he announces his next move, a public bombing meant to make him the most feared terrorist imaginable. Enzo remembers what Fabio once said about a stadium, and he heads straight for the AS Roma station. Outside the station, Enzo finally comes face to face with Fabio. He tries to stop him, but Fabio now has the same superhuman strength, turning the fight into an even match. Fabio toys with him for a moment and then challenges him to a final showdown inside the stadium before slipping away. In the chaos, Fabio manages to activate the bomb. Enzo panics for a second, then grabs the device and drives it away from the crowded area. With no time to think, he launches himself off a bridge with Fabio and the bomb, sending all three of them crashing into the river. The explosion ends the threat and kills Fabio for good. After the incident, the world no longer sees Enzo as a criminal. He becomes a recognized hero who saved Rome from a devastating attack. Honoring Alessia's wish, he chooses to use his power to protect others. And as a tribute to her, Enzo begins wearing the knitted mask she made for him. It becomes the symbol of his new identity, the silent guardian of the city of Rome. So the moral of the story is if radioactive sludge turns you into a superhero, maybe use it to save people first and rob ATMs later.